Hello, hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to our show titled Speak of Africa. We have another great show for you today. This show is really a show. We started this show because we wanted to give you a voice. So we've been trying to cover a lot of stories. Because we say this is your show, we encourage you to share ideas with us. What should we be covering? Are you happy with what we're covering on the show? Please feel free to criticize us because we want to make changes to meet your needs. Are you happy with the topics we are covering? Are there topics you think we're not covering that we should be covering? That's what we want to know. We started this show because we wanted to give you a voice, a place where you can communicate with other Africans. We think we'll do our best if you can share your ideas. This show should not be a monologue. We want to hear you speak. For today, as you know, we are always talking about Africa's sovereignty. Why are we having African problems? Even though we do not like to point the finger at colonial forces, but we've realized that they tend to be the cause of a lot of Africa's problems. When you look at things politically, socially, and economically, a lot of problems that are happening in Africa come from outside. In fact, the breaking news we want to share with you this week lays threadbare that my thesis is correct. Africa's problems come from outside, predominantly. That's what is happening. You look at like this week, what is happening in the motherland? So many things are happening. The superpowers are still juggling for influence in the continent of Africa. And people are saying they are splitting Africa apart. Well, Africa is not really splitting apart geologically, as they are saying. There's some kind of seismic shift around the Horn of Africa. We see that. Will this become another ocean, another continent? It remains to be seen. It will take a long time. But what we want to focus your attention on are the realities. What is happening in Africa today? When you hear some of the stuff that is happening, it sounds like noise. No, it's not noise. You look at Congo DRC, for example. This week, the Trump administration decided to sanction Joseph Kabila after a very long time. But when you look at what is happening in Congo, America really has a hand in the problems that are happening in Congo. Because when you look at Congo, Congo was an independent country with Patrice Lumumba as prime minister. America decided to kill him, and that was the beginning of the problems of Congo, DRC. After that, America installed a puppet called Joseph Désiré Lumumba. He reigned for so long until, after the Cold War, he became useless. Then America decided to replace him. So even when you see what is happening today in Congo, it is because of America's influence. Now America is back in Congo. They did not only get the raw materials for the atomic bomb from Congo, but they also want the minerals in Congo. The Trump administration has signed deals to take away the minerals of Congo DRC. Can you imagine this? That's the background. Okay, we're going to solve the problem. We're going to end the war between Congo and Rwanda. Their interest is not really to end the war. Their interest is to profit from the minerals in Congo DRC. So when people are dying in this area, you ask yourself, blood diamonds, what is happening? Is because America wants to profit from these raw materials. This is what is causing a lot of the bloodshed in this part of the world. And you see that happening today. Joseph Kabila was in power. Americans did not like what he was doing, so they killed him. Then they installed his son as a successor. His son was basically a lackey of Rwanda. Some people even said he was from Rwanda. He's not really a Congolese. Yet, the problem continues. People are fighting over the resources in Congo DRC. Why do you see people fighting in the east? The M23. The M23 have been fighting and taking territory. Why is this happening? Because of colonial forces. People are fighting for the minerals in Congo DRC. And this is what is happening this week. So even though the Trump administration has sanctioned Joseph Kabila, you ask yourself, who created this monster? America created the monster. America is not alone. When you look at Eswatini. This week, the Prime Minister of Taiwan was able to play around, throw off China, then visited Taiwan on an official visit. China has been trying to make sure that this visit doesn't take place, but the Taiwanese were able to outmaneuver China, then they found themselves in Eswatini, which is why this week China is offering zero tariffs to most African countries except Eswatini, the country of King Mswati. Why is this small African country a problem to China? Because this small African country's king, King Mswatini, is supporting Taiwan. Of course, you understand the geopolitics. Taiwan is considered by China to be a renegade province. I don't want to go into the history of China, the mainland, and Taiwan. So we'll talk about this in another video. But just know that anytime that you are supporting Taiwan, you become persona non grata to China. Now, the Taiwanese Prime Minister is in Eswatini meeting with King Mswati and other government officials. China is not happy about this, so China wants to flex its muscles, and China this week was announcing zero tariff policy for most of the African countries. China is doing this not just because they want to be kind, they're just positioning themselves. As America under Donald Trump is making life difficult for African countries, most African countries are looking for another trade partner. And China is filling that vacuum beautifully. Okay? And a lot of Chinese influence can be seen in much of Africa because China is filling the vacuum that America is leaving behind. So you can see why Eswatini is not in China's good books. So you see the way we tell you that Africa is not free. Africa is poor because Africa is not free. Free Africa and Africa will be free. Since 1884, since the Berlin Conference, Africa has been under the yoke of colonial forces and global forces. And they make it difficult. Imagine that the whole continent has been carved into small, infantile countries that cannot really exist. We talk about this all the time in our videos. That's the principal problem in Africa. Imagine that if Africa were one country, one continent, then we'll be negotiating from a position of power. But right now, we always negotiate from a position of weakness. And that's the truth about it. Even now, take Ghana. This week, we understand that the government of Mahatma is refusing to sign a healthcare deal with the U.S. Why? Because the U.S. has a lot of strings attached to this healthcare deal. So President Mahama is refusing to sign it, and we commend him. What about Kenya? Kenya also has been eyeing this healthcare data law, and they don't want to sign the contract. Okay? That when you go to Morocco, in Morocco, you also see the imprint of AFRICOM, the U.S. Army. America is projecting its military might in Africa. America has a lot of bases all over Africa. In Morocco, they have these African Lion military exercises, and they are taking place. So 2 U.S. servicemen are reported to have been missing. So we don't know what happened. So do you think America is conducting these exercises for Africa's security or for America's interests? We think America is doing this for America's interests, and it is not for Africa's interests. Unfortunately, we have dumb leaders in Africa. These are leaders who don't care about their people. These are leaders who are not nationalistic. These are leaders who are not patriotic. When are we going to have leaders who can understand that they need to do things for the interests of Africa? Unfortunately, when you study history, you realize that in Africa, the identity of your average person is the tribe. It's not the nation. So the idea of nationhood is strange to your average African. Most Africans identify only with their tribes. I'm Yoruba, I'm Igbo, I'm Hausa. That's what people identify with. And we look at it like the politics of predators, the politics of exclusion. And this is what is really causing problem in much of Africa, because you have this politics of exclusion. come to power through fake democracy, but democracy is actually teleguided from France, from the United States, from Britain. So it is not really the Africans themselves who are deciding their fate. It is a colonial office somewhere in Washington that is deciding the fate of Africans, which is why you see, for example, in Cameroon, we'll tell you 2 soldiers were killed this week, and we'll hear others were also killed in an ambush. Last week, we talked to you about the government of Paul Biya going to Jakiri, sending their military forces there to kill over 11 civilians. Then they were tagged as terrorists. You see women who have nothing to do with any fight, but they are killed. You see children who become collateral damage. So is this a way to defend your sovereignty? If Cameroon were a sovereign country, all of this will not be happening. Cameroon will not be killing its own people for the sport of these European colonial forces like France. But as you know, the guys who were supposed to really run Cameroon, who wanted to take Cameroon to independence, like Felix Mumwe, Nyobe, they were killed by French forces. So the people were robbed of the opportunity to have nationalists to run the country. They killed all these nationalists in cold blood. Then they brought puppets like Amadou Ahidjo. Now everything is followed by another puppet, Paul Biya, who declares himself le meilleur élève de Mitterrand, François, l'ancien président français. So when you have a guy who is a protégé of a colonial power, how do you think this guy is going to do things for the interests of Cameroonians? He's not going to do that. So when Cameroonians complain that, oh, there's no drinking water, there's no light, we don't have any services, it's because the president doesn't care about you. You did not elect him. He was appointed by France. Until France decides that they don't want him again, then they will replace him with somebody else. So far, France has not found somebody yet to replace Paul Biya, and which is why the people are still fighting the war of clans. This week, much of what I see is a war, the war of the sons of Paul Biya. Georges Gilbert Bangola, Frank Biya, and Frank Hers, and all the other guys. Everybody is fighting. I'm Biya's son, so I should be the one to succeed him. Other Cameroonians should not succeed him at all because the presidency belongs to the Biya dynasty, okay? The Biya dynasty, the Biya clan owns Cameroon. So Cameroon should not be ruled by any other person who is not from Biya's family. So when you look back, the way Biya became president, you know that Biya did not come from a royal family. But he has run Cameroon for over 45 years as a royal. He's the longest serving non-royal potentate you can find in the world. And this is a typical problem we find in many places in Africa. So you may think that I'm talking much about Cameroon. What about Mali, which is a recent example that is very much in the news? When people started hearing about the alliance of the states of the Sahel, it was a breath of fresh air, because when these military guys, for example, Assimi Goïta, decided to take over the country from colonial forces, your average African was happy because it was just a knee-jerk reaction. They knew they could not dislodge these French puppets from power. So anybody who came and dislodged them became a friend. And that's how Assimi Goïta became the darling of the people of Mali. But what remains to be seen is like what is causing the conflict in the country this week. You saw what happened on the 25th of April, going to the 27th. The Tuareg rebels and an Al-Qaeda outfit joined forces and coordinated a major attack which led to a coup d'etat that failed. If this coup d'etat had succeeded, then Assimi Goïta would have been thrown out. So the mastermind, the guy who actually engineered the coup, which took Mali from civilians to the military, Sadio Kamara, he was killed. This guy who believed in Russia, he was killed. We cannot believe in foreign powers. What are the lessons we learned from the failed coup d'etat in Mali? The politic of exclusion is not good. We should try to understand that militarization is not going to work. If there's any lesson Mali can learn, the Mali people and Assimi Goïta government, militarization is not going to save you. Look at the way the government of Assimi Goïta has been shaken to its core. They thought they were very powerful, but just a coordinated attack from the Tuareg rebels and the Al-Qaeda affiliate Jenim has shaken them to the core. Okay? So this has really revealed the fragile state, the fragile architecture of the whole junta apparatus. Even with the presence of Russia, they were really shaken. In fact, it took a lot of forces from Russia, airplanes, helicopters, gunships, to bomb the positions of the rebels and the Tuareg revolutionaries before the onslaught was contained. So what about the next one? Don't you think this is a serious security flaw? When a coordinated attack like the one that took place in Mali is going to happen, why is it that a lot of people in the government did not know? Well, the answer is simple. It is because within the same government of Assimi Goïta, you had a lot of people who were disgruntled. They were not happy with the government Assimi Goïta. So they were able to infiltrate and give a lot of intelligence to the Tuareg rebels and the Al-Qaeda affiliate Jenim. So when you ask me, how come the Assimi Goïta government did not know that this was in the planning stages? It's because your average person did not really care about this government. They make a lot of propaganda on the air. African nationalism. Yes, we love African nationalism. We believe in African nationalism. We agree that democracy has failed in Africa because the colonial master wanted it to fail. If they did not want it to fail, they will not make Africa a group of over 54 infantile states that are not strong enough to survive. They should not have balkanized the whole of Africa the way it was done after the Berlin Conference. Africa should have been allowed to get back together as one continent, one nation, one army, one parliament, one society, one passport. If this had happened, a lot of the problems that you're seeing today in Africa will not take place. So Russia cannot protect you all the time. I think that's a lesson Assimi Goïta should be able to learn faced with the crisis from these jihadis. And the jihadis is not just a group of people. The jihadis is also an idea. They have a revolutionary idea where they believe in the creation of an Islamic state in Mali. If we don't want this to happen, arms alone are not going to make this impossible. You can have all the military might. If you don't kill the idea using societal tactics, then the idea would eventually be realized. Okay? So in Mali, you can see now that the symbol of the failure of the junta is Sadio Camara. He paid dearly with his life. Some may say he did not die in vain. But from his death, we can see that he died a martyr. Okay? He died a martyr. But people can see that his belief in Russia failed him. Did Russia protect him from death? No. So the Russian soldiers are even saying, Africans, don't expect us to carry on the task of securing your country. See what you can do to secure your country yourself. So that's what I think Africans need to take from this video. We cannot be relying on foreign forces to guarantee security for us, because they guarantee security for their own countries, not for us. So if you are begging for something, the guy who gives you the thing eventually may take it back, and he may decide not to give you everything that you want. And that's what is happening with the alliance of the states of the Sahel. They believe so much in Russia, but there are limits to the strength of Russia. But Russia is not God to save you from every crisis. Okay? Next, we take it to Zambia. Zambia also is another example where The superpowers are fighting. America wants to take the mineral resources in that country. The Chinese want the resources in that country. So when Hakainde Hichilema gives the resources to China, America complains. Oh, China is polluting the place. But now, the health deal, Hakainde Hichilema has refused to sign this contract. What about Nigeria? Well, Nigeria is where we're going to end our show of today. As we speak to you today, President Bola Tinubu is on a mission, on a tour. France, then Kenya. Okay? He's on a tour. But he's leaving home, a home with a lot of crisis. We know on his mind, he's very much preparing for 2027 presidential elections. We know that. And as a side idea, we understand Peter Obi has decided to quit the ADC party. So people are already jockeying for power. They're already looking at 2027. Bola Tinubu wants to run again and he wants to win. So the other politicians, like even Atiku Abubakar, even after the Ibadan meeting, a lot of forces are still jockeying for power. But when they are jockeying for power, they allow more important things to go without attention. Look at a video that has been circulating on social media. This video is in Delta State. The video shows rape. The raping of women in Delta State. Young girls from a college campus. What kind of festival are you going to present where you encourage the raping of young women? I think we have some pictures of this to show you, and most people are not really happy with what happened in Nigeria. So even the rulers of that part of Nigeria have been sanctioned. They've been told what is happening is not good. Young girls are running away from people who are trying to rape them, and you can see the pictures. It's very, very sad. And even when the pictures were shown to most people in a lot of Western countries, they ask themselves, there is insecurity in Nigeria, so now there's also even sexual insecurity. So what kind of country is this? It's very, very sad. Then, of course, Nigeria also has more issues. And this issue too has to do with the South Africans. The South Africans have been kicking Nigerians out. They have been maltreating Nigerians, harassing them. So now the Nigerian government is responding. They have summoned the South African ambassador in Abuja, and they want to see what can happen. But what do you think can be a solution? We think the Nigerian government needs to explain to South Africa that it is a no-no. Nigerian citizens have to be protected in that country. If they cannot protect Nigerian citizens, then it means Nigeria should not be protecting the citizens of South Africa who are living and working in Nigeria. Then, of course, we've told you in the past, Nigerians invested a lot in the liberation movements of South Africa. Murtala Muhammad, for example, spent a lot of Nigerian money helping those frontline states. But if the average South African does not understand the contribution that Nigeria has made, then it is really sad when we look at the natural scheme of things. Brother against brother. How can this be? How can South Africans be so forgetful? Don't they realize that Nigeria did a lot for them to be free? Or, as we say, don't ask what you've done for me. Is that what you want to say now? Okay, if that's what you want to say now, we don't think it's a fair way to treat brothers. As brothers, we should be our brother's keeper. I think that is the golden rule. South Africans are not respecting this golden rule, and we're reminding them that they should. So we've come to the end of our show. We've talked about the lack of sovereignty in Africa. There's no sovereignty politically, there's no sovereignty economically, and there's no sovereignty socially. So what do you think? You've watched this show. Tell me, how do you think we can become sovereign? What do we need to do? I've always presented a lot of ideas, but now it's your turn. Go to the comment section, write. Tell us what we should do to make sure that Africa can become free. Africa is poor and suffering because Africa is not free. What should we do to break the shackles that have been put on us by these colonial powers? What should be done? Can you give us a blueprint? So let's start thinking, because you can only solve a problem when you start thinking about it. And this show is a way for us to start thinking about Africa's problems, the need for Africa to be free. So if you have some ideas, don't shy away, write in the comment section. We want to see you use that comment section. Use it and comment. May God bless you.
Selling a service or a product? Need buyers? Use the African Nation TV as a channel to reach many viewers. Act now and call Prince Ojong at 240-350-1131. That's 240-350-1131. Act today.